Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Drawing a formation on the rocks was going to be hard work, so Reyes decided to walk closer to the stream of water where the pebbles had turned into a type of sand. Doing everything with the stick, he felt a sense of calmness come over him. This reminds me of my old life, Reyes thought. I would often have to hide out in the middle of nowhere, away from the eyes of others. The sound of water flowing, it's quite soothing. With the direction I'm going, it might not be a long time until I'm on the run again. The formation had finished. Sitting down inside the magic circle he had drawn, he took out one of the crystals from his robe and activated the magic. The crystals would then slowly dissolve as they entered through Reyes' pores and went into his magic core. Once he had finished with one crystal, he would then move on to the next, doing the same thing. It was best to do them one at a time. That way, the core was able to grow bit by bit. Expanded too fast, and it could explode, killing the mage on the spot. There were many dealers in Alterian that would offer special tools to help enhance one's strength. Some of them would destroy the magic core completely, killing the mage, while others, although they would get a boost in strength, would then become reliant on the tools. They were worse than cursed items. They would give a slight rise in power, but then a larger downfall, making them weaker than they would have been if they never used the tools in the first place. Reyes continued to absorb another crystal as memories flashed through his head. He had seen a number of people who had been affected by these items, including one that he would have once called a friend. And the one behind the distribution of these tools, Gizon, one of the 5 Grand Magus. No one would ever have suspected it. And it's one that no one would believe no matter how hard I tried to get the message out. After absorbing the 8th crystal, it was right then Reyes could feel it in his chest. The magic core had thumped and expanded slightly in size. The outer shell had hardened inside him and was beginning to crack. Arc! His hand gripped the area around his chest, and dark magic started to swirl all around his body. It was erratic, hitting the pebbles nearby, crashing into the water around him. A faint purple glow covered his body until his core completely cracked. It shattered on the inside, and the magic from his body exploded, pushing all of the rocks and the water back. Reyes was on his knees, gasping for air. When he went to breathe in, he could feel it. The energy felt cooler as it entered his body. His sense of smell cleared up, and just with the touch on his skin, he could feel not only the wind, but the energy that flowed through it. It was as if the world that was covered in clouded colors had now become a lot clearer. I did it. Rey's smile was nearly reaching his eyes. I finally became a 2-star mage. The amount of mana I can control has increased. I'm no longer limited by the attribute cap, and with more mana, it allows me to cast even more spells. Looking deep within himself, Reyes could tell the core was now more reinforced. The magic core worked similarly to fractures in a human bone. Through the crystals, it would chip away with magic, allowing it to regrow and come back stronger. Then when the outer shell finally broke and a new one was in its place, that's when one would have reached the next star level. There are multiple ways to do this, but the quickest by far was using the crystals found within the beasts. Now, there was an issue I had to face, though. These level 1 power stones, as they call them here, can only increase a mage's star level to level 2 at most. Now, if I want to go to the next stage, I will need higher grade power stones. To do that, I could try and open a different portal or explore deeper in the one I already opened. I could also go to another clan. If I went with others, it would be safer. There is safety in numbers, especially in places that others had been to before. He was sure clans would have rules for Pagna warriors using the portals they had access to. The main problem was that Reyes used magic to kill beasts, and he wouldn't be able to use that with others around. I still have 6 power stones to myself now. Since they're useless for increasing my mana, I can use them for other things. For mages, sometimes it was the number of items that would help one win a battle, not just one's power. In a way, rare items and enchanted items were one's power. It was time for him to head back to the temple. Otherwise, he would never get some sleep. But he was excited for the next morning because that's when he would have a look and give a go at learning the gift he had been given. Looking at the area around him, It was a complete mess with the pebbles and sand having blown everywhere. It was a good thing that no one came out here. Walking back through the forest, Ray's headed toward the temple. In the same area where Ray's was, sparks were occurring. They were like little shocks of electricity in the air, appearing for a few seconds before disappearing. Eventually, a small glowing portal had opened up, and small black tentacles had shot out, wriggling all over in the air, trying to reach for something. The portal quickly closed back up, and the tentacles disappeared as well, but the sparks of electricity continued on for a few moments more before stopping. Safa had woken up, and when she turned her head, as usual, Ray's was still in a deep sleep. She pressed her hand on her chest and let out a big sigh of relief. She didn't know why, but she just felt that maybe one of these days she would wake up and he would no longer be by her side. When she stood up, she could feel a slight breeze in the air around them. It felt almost fresh, and sniffing it in through her nostrils, it was almost like consuming a strong mint. It had supercharged her for the day. Leaving the room, she had done so with a smile on her face and went ahead to join the others. "Your brother's still asleep, I see," Crone said. "Well, I suppose his weak body does need more rest than most. As long as you are happy to do his and your work for the upkeep of both of you, then I won't stop you." Safa pumped her fist as she was ready to help out in the kitchen and cleaning. She was trying her best to help out her brother in whatever way she could. This way, he could sleep in longer than the others. When Ray's eventually woke up, he could see that Safa had already left. "I guess that means they're not too bothered about me sleeping in. Otherwise, Crone would have come and woken me up himself." Taking a peek outside his door, he could hear everyone talking as they were eating breakfast. From the sounds of things, they had just been setting the table. Breakfast would usually take an hour, so he predicted he had an hour before someone would check up on him. Sitting back down in his room, Ray's activated his robe from his clothing and then pulled out the Cultivation manual. He sat cross-legged as he opened the book and started to flick through the pages. I'm not sure why, but every mention of the technique's name has been scratched or rubbed out throughout the book. I have a feeling that what I'm about to learn might not be something he was meant to give out, Ray's thought. Instead of being disheartened, though, Ray's had a large smile. Since when did he stop himself from learning new things because of that? Reading through it, the steps are the same as the Dark Essence technique. The main differences, though, were the imagery that one had to have in their head when trying to draw the energy to their dantian. This one wanted the person to focus on the cycles. The feeling one gets when new life is born into this world, and the feeling of when life was taken away. The energy that is given when something is born, and the energy that is taken when a life is lost. This technique would be hard for most young people who have yet to experience these types of things, but I have seen this cycle firsthand many times, but there is one other thing it notes as well. In the manual, there were several times when it noted the importance of the location when using the technique. It works best in a place where any part of the cycle has occurred. So either where a lot of lives have come into this world or where death has been experienced multiple times. Just thinking about it, Ray's was starting to feel that this technique was incredibly dangerous. Other than a hospital, it was hard for Ray's to think of areas where new life would come into this world. However, death was easy to come by, and not only that, it was easy to make. One could use this technique on a battlefield of sorts, or, if they really wanted to push it to its limits, they could create a den full of the dead. Pushing that thought to the side, it still didn't discourage Ray's to learn the technique. His path was one that was planned to be paved in blood either way. Closing his eyes, he started to focus. He started with the steps that Mr. Crone had taught, breathing in through his nose the energy around them. Ray's had become quite good at this since he would do this whenever he got the chance with the Dark Essence technique to improve his dark attribute. After the first part was done, it was time for him to picture the imagery in his head. The air that he was taking in now was starting to change. It felt dark, not like that of the Dark Essence energy, but heavier in a sense. As the energy started to accumulate in his body, he noticed when it entered his body, unlike the Dark Essence, it didn't go to his mana core. It continued and went down past his belly button. The energy was starting to gather from deep within. Is it working? Is this it? Am I able to gather chi with this technique? The energy started to grow through Ray's body, and a ball was forming in his stomach, but something strange started to happen. After a solid ball had been made, somewhat like that of his magic core, the energy started to spread out. It was moving about, all over his body. He could feel it reacting with all of his muscles, cells, and it was almost fighting with himself. Arg! Ray's grunted with pain. The energy was going rampant. It felt like he was being hit from the inside. It wasn't just his muscles that were taking a beating from this energy, but even his organs. It felt like they were being twisted and pulled inside him, and he was finding it hard to breathe. Cool. Ray's coughed, and blood came shooting out from his mouth. It wasn't a small amount, as a puddle of it was on the floor, but it wasn't red. The blood looked almost black in color. The energy continued to run rampant in his body, and that's when he could feel it was starting to head somewhere dangerous. Is it going for my mana core? Is it going for my heart? Shrouded Heart. Ray's activated the spell in fear for his life. After the energy had created a solid base in what Ray's assumed was his dantian, the energy started to spread throughout his body, and now it felt like it was ripping him from the inside out. The dark, almost black-colored blood was quite the sign to say that he was probably right, and when he could see it going for his heart next, he needed to act fast. Shrouded Heart, the skill that used up all his mana to create a shield around his mana core, which was linked to the heart in the first place. Ray's could feel the energy trying to attack it, almost as if it was alive. However, the skill Shrouded Heart was pushing it away. It continued to hit, and he could feel his whole body shaking. Kook, kook. Ray's continued to cough, and blood was flung out of his mouth violently. It wasn't just being coughed out, but was being propelled all over the place. Am I going to die? Breakfast had ended for the children, and with them busy putting away the plates and washing up, Crone had decided that he would wake up Ray's. Although it was important that he rested, it was also important that he didn't miss a meal. Arg! Turning his head, noise could be heard, and it was coming right from Ray's room. Is it an assassin? I thought we were safe in the temple, and with no incidents happening so far, I let my guard down. Crone sprinted right to the room and slid the door open, with his fist ready to go up against anything that was inside, but instead he soon lowered his fist. What in the heavens happened in here? Crone said. Simeon, walking by, could see the teacher standing there still. He decided to take a peek into the room, and he almost fell to his knees. What is all that? Is that blood? The entire room was covered in blood. The flooring had splatters of the dark substance, the walls from left to right, and even the ceiling was covered in it. It looked as if someone had splattered buckets of paint all over the place. It was hard to even believe that a person had so much blood in their body. However, what Crone's eyes had been drawn like a magnet to was the boy sitting in the center of the room on his own. His body was shivering once in a while. It was shaking, his eyes were sunken, his pupils barely visible as they looked to be closed. His mouth was open, and he was repeatedly mumbling the same words over and over again. I will not die. I will not die. I've never seen such a strong will to live before, Crone thought. His presence, it is like that of a dangerous beast. Even I was too afraid to get close. Snapping out of it, Crone acted quickly as he turned around and could see Simeon. Make sure no one goes into this room. It's off limits. In the meantime, I'm going to let Ray's take your room. Rushing over, Crone lifted Ray's, holding him in a cradling position with his two hands, and rushed him to Simeon's room. He then placed Ray's on the bed and shut the door behind him. Ray's, can you hear me? Is everything okay? Can you still feel the energy in your body? Crone asked. He could see Ray's lips moving. He was no longer saying the same words, but sounded as if he had said something else. Pressing his head closer, Crone could eventually hear what Ray's said. Don't touch him. Ray's managed to let out before passing out completely. Some time had passed, and Ray's was able to open his eyes again. The first thing he realized was how comfortable he felt as his back was up against something relatively soft, and how much closer the ceiling looked. Wait, why am I lying down? Wasn't I cultivating from that manual before? And then I used Shrouded Heart, but I'm alive. You're awake, Crone said, sitting in a chair that was just by Ray's side. You can keep resting for a while, but if I'm correct in my thinking, you won't feel like you need to. The comments confused Reyes. He had just been through a torturous session with his own body and was constantly spewing blood. How did he feel? Fine? I do feel fine. I feel absolutely fine. No, I feel better than fine. When breathing, it didn't feel like a foot was on top of his chest. His body, it felt more responsive than before, something that he didn't even think was possible. And even his own body composition, the muscles seemed fuller and larger. Finally, he could feel it. His magic core was still there, and in his stomach there was the basis of chi. Right now, you might be extremely confused, and you have every right to be, Crone explained. What your body went through was something similar to a cleanse. It was getting rid of all of the impurities in your body. But it wasn't a normal cleanse. Every muscle in your body, to your very bones, even your organs. It was getting rid of everything that affects our body in day-to-day life. What harms the cells that make up all of our body. That black blood that spewed out from your body, that was you going through the cleanse. It was black in color because it was everything bad that your body didn't need. The only thing was, you had an extremely abnormal amount. I've never seen someone have so many impurities in their body before. Hearing what Crone was saying and feeling the effects on his body, he could only believe that what he was saying was true right now. Does this mean I have chi now, and I can learn martial arts? Reyes asked. Crone chuckled. The difference between a regular civilian and a Pagna warrior are the impurities in their body. Now that your body has gotten rid of all of this, it's now stronger, can move faster, and last longer. You're almost a superhuman compared to them. Reyes, what you just went through isn't just someone who has learned to use chi. You're now officially a Stage 1 Pagna warrior. The two were just in disbelief as they looked at each other over their words, but what Reyes had been through was something that only first-stage Pagna warriors went through. Those at the Red Brigade, just like at the temple, would learn how to use chi, and when a core was established enough, it would get rid of the impurities from one's body, allowing them to reach the first stage. This was also the requirement for one to enter the Pagna Academy, and that's why everyone coming from a clan or respectable family trains so hard to reach this stage. I'm at the first stage. You're saying, not only have I learned to use chi, but I'm beyond even that? How is it possible for me to have skipped so many steps? Reyes asked. The only thing I can think of is the chi pill I gave you. It perhaps was far more effective than we realized. And, as you said, your body was just taking a long time to heal, Crone answered. Another reason is perhaps because of the large amount of impurities in your body. The more impurities in one's body, the more energy needed to expel it. For you, there was only one option of jumping from one stage to the other because you weren't able to exert next to no strength, and you weren't able to slowly get rid of these impurities. So a mass amount of chi is needed, which is why I gave you the pill. There was also something else that Crone didn't mention. Originally, he thought that Reyes couldn't learn martial arts or make a base for chi because his body was already filled with dark or light energy. One would call this a yin or a yang body. However, with all the black blood that was spilt and forced out his body, he now knew the real reason. It was due to the impurities, but Reyes' case was extremely rare. If a chi base was able to forcefully be established and rid the body of everything impure, then it would also go for the heart as well. In nearly all cases where there was one with a body like Reyes, they would end up dead, and there were only a few cases where this hadn't happened. Those people had gone on to be known as irregulars, disrupting the world of Pagna. Little did Reyes know that if he hadn't used the skill-shrouded heart, he would be dead. Reyes couldn't help but continue to move his hand through the air in amazement. It was so easy, feeling next to no resistance at all. When was the last time he could ever do this? In his past life, he always wondered if he would live to the next day, worrying about food on the table. When he got older, food wasn't the problem, but all the self-experiments he had done on his own body had made him live in pain almost every day of his life. Then when transferring to this new body, it wasn't exactly the best that was until now. Damn, you have managed to give me a great gift beyond what you can imagine, Reyes smiled. Crone was still sitting there in disbelief as he looked at Reyes. It was only a few days ago that he was talking to Sonny about what to do. If Reyes wasn't able to get into the academy when he turned 16, he wouldn't be able to protect himself, and with the way things were going, it would have been impossible. Later on, Reyes was out of his bed and had consumed everything on his plate that they gave him for breakfast and lunch. When he met the others, all of them could tell there was a noticeable difference. For one, his skin was glowing more vibrant than before. He was no longer slouched when eating, and even his muscles on his body appeared to bulge fuller compared to before. Other than his face, it was hard to tell that the two were the same person. There wasn't a single thing left on Rey's plate, and he was also eating what was left on others' plates. Crone couldn't help but smile, as this was just more proof that his body had essentially evolved, and now it needed fuel to work. For the rest of the day, Rey's task was cleaning up the room that he had ruined with his own blood. He had a bucket and a cloth and was working hard away. However, he didn't find it hard work at all. If anything, he was enjoying the fact that he could do the task without rest. Finally, for the first time since he had joined the temple, he was looking forward to the afternoon training that was to take place. When they were outside, the twins were in charge of the normal running routine, and Reyes went right ahead to the front. He kept up with them, continuing to run more and more. Even when they sped up, he didn't fall behind. When the twins finally stopped, everyone was huffing and panting, and only a small sweat had broken out on Reyes. This is it. This is what it feels like to experience youth again. Reyes smiled. When one transmigrates to a new body, they expect something like this. What happened to your brother? Simeon asked. He's become a monster overnight. How is it even possible? I mean, was he just hiding everything before? No, his whole body's changed as well. Safa shook her head because she really had no clue either. Looking at Rey's condition, there was clearly a secret behind it all. I have to ask him at some point. I just need to find the right time. As they went through the rest of the lesson, it was finally time for them all to hit the measuring pillar. Each person hit it well, with many staying on the same score. Safa was in good enough condition to hit it again, and surprisingly, her score had raised to 26. She now had the highest score out of all those at the temple, including if Gren was still here as well. It's not so much that her chi has improved, but more so, she has no hesitation when throwing out her fists. As she improved since the incident with Gren, it was clear that Safa was a once-in-a-hundred-years talent. Next to come to the pillar was Reyes. He got in his fighting stance, and there was no need for Crone to inform him what to do next. Let's see how much I've improved. The two-step shift was performed perfectly and was filled with energy. The chi was raised from his stomach and exploded out of his fist into the pillar, until the final numbers had appeared. 32. Whoa, the kids were in awe. It was the first time they had witnessed such a leap. They didn't even know such improvement was possible. Just like that, the record for the strongest in the temple had been beaten, but Rey's excitement couldn't be contained. This is the strength of my punch now? So just how strong would the dark strike be now? It turned out, despite his new body, Reyes was more exhausted than he thought, and that was just in general due to the lack of sleep he had been going through the last few nights. From what he had heard from the others, the higher the stage a Pagna warrior was, the less sleep one would need. Hopefully in the future, if he could continue to grow the way he had been doing, then it was something he didn't have to worry about. After a good night's sleep, Reyes had been called into a meeting with Crone in his office once again. You should be careful calling me in for one-on-ones so often. Otherwise, people will think you might be grooming me, Reyes joked as he sat down. Grooming? Crone replied, not understanding the context of it all. The other kids might get jealous, Reyes said, trying to go past the joke he had made. Ah, I see. Jealousy is natural in all nature, Crone replied. In fact, I would say when children are jealous, it's more a form of honesty, but adults get far more jealous than children, and their actions for attempting to deal with such a thing can be far more severe. Crone didn't have to tell Reyes twice. He knew how strong of an emotion jealousy was, especially when that emotion was placed within a person who had never been told no in his life. That was a dangerous combination. I have no doubt, after your display of strength on the pillar, that you are a stage 1 warrior now, Crone declared. And honestly, you are talented to the point that if you stay here, your progress will stagnate. Which is why I wanted to ask you, before attempting for the academy, would you like to join the disciples of the Red Brigade clan? Thinking back, Reyes remembered when he had walked past. He saw the disciples there and how skilled they were. They were also already learning a lot more than just a two-step shift. Joining the clan also meant that one would be allowed access to the skills of the clan that could only be taught to clan members. It also meant loyalty to that group of people as well. Although it would be nice to learn more martial arts techniques, the Red Brigade clan is small, and it would limit me, Ray's thought, and a picture of Dame appeared in his head, as well as Beatrix. These two had to have come from far greater clans than the Red Brigade. Through my relationship with Dame, I have the chance of obtaining better and more powerful skills. Besides, there are more people there that would keep me under greater watch than here. The answer was clear for Ray's. I'm sorry, but I don't wish to join the Red Brigade clan, Ray's answered. If I was to join, being the only stage one in the temple, then I would have to go by myself, which means my sister wouldn't be able to join me, and I wish to stay by my sister's side, wherever she is. This answer was an excuse, but a believable one to put across, and judging by Crone's nod, he seemed to buy it. I understand, but if you ever change your mind, then feel free to speak to me, Crone said. Just before he was about to get up, Ray's did have a question he wanted to ask. Sir, is it possible, can I head into town? There is no need for you to come with me, but I would like to explore a bit more. With my body the way it is now, I might even wish to get a job to earn some coin for myself. Things should be fine that I'm now a rank 1 warrior, right? Things certainly wouldn't be fine, considering the people after him might be higher rank than that. But the situation would be the same regardless if he was to leave him for another year, and Crone still remembered the words that Ray's had spoken to him before. I've already agreed that I won't stop you from doing as you wish while you stay here, Crone answered. You can treat this as your home until you turn 16, and as long as you earn your keep around the temple, I have no objections to what you do. Ray's bowed down as he was ready to leave. With the 6 crystals he had, it was time for him to make a few more items and potions for himself as well. He needed to be ready for his next hunt, now that he was a 2-star mage. I'm starting to like you a bit, Crone. You have a good nature, Ray's thought as he left the room. Just don't betray my trust. At the same time, in the town itself, at the Red Brigade base, a meeting was taking place in the head elder's room. The head elder, Jan, was sitting at his desk, looking at the 2 newcomers inside. He had just received a report from the 2 of them, and it wasn't the news he had been expecting. Your group, the Altars, was recommended by a dear friend of mine, so I put my trust in you to find out the root of our problem, Jan said. However, none of the cases of the dead families have yet to be resolved, and there have been sightings of portals, although no sign of a portal break. The large man stepped forward, bowing down. He moved his overcoat to the side as it dragged on the floor a bit before lifting his head back up, and then gave the side eye to his orange-haired companion by his side. She bowed down after placing her hands on her beret hat, so it wouldn't fall down. I apologize for that. The case is far more tricky than we thought, Himi answered. If a portal break did occur, then we would know about it, but we have searched and have found no open portals in the area. As for the other problem, we recently heard that there was a survivor in one of the cases. If we could speak to him about what he knew, then maybe that would help us. Reaching the town was a lot easier this time compared to the last. The long, winding staircase that went through the thick forest he had descended with ease, and even now as he walked, looking around, he wasn't out of breath. He was better at observing his surroundings as he would move and weave, avoiding the people next to him, not bumping into them like the last time he had visited the place. Eventually, Ray's had stopped at a building he had been to once before. One of the major issues I have is the fact that I have these crystals that are like a bar of gold, yet it's impossible for me to sell on my own. How am I meant to get more items that are needed? The place he had stopped in front of was the pawn shop, the same pawn shop he had visited last time. Although it had been a long time since he had visited the place, there was still the chance that no one had found out about the incident. And if that was the case, there would be no harm in him borrowing a few items from inside. To his surprise, the sign on the front door stated open. Open? How is that possible? I didn't hallucinate about what happened last time, did I? Ray's thought. His curiosity was great, and he wanted to open the door, but considering what had happened last time, he thought it was best if he left it be. Walking away, he couldn't help but think about how strange it was. Was there no investigation? I mean, I can understand if the business was bought out and changed. Maybe it was taken over by another family member. Or it could be some type of trap. They do say that criminals always return to the scene of the crime. Inside the shop, working behind the counter, was the large man in the brown overcoat. Himmy had been using it as a base of operations of sorts in the meantime, and had gotten permission from the Red Brigade to look after it for now. As for the deaths of the two, they truly did have no family and friends. No one missed them, and when old customers returned, stating that the two had run away, everyone was quick to believe that fact. Continuing his walk, Reyes had entered an open market. There were stalls that were packed tightly together in rows selling a number of different things. One would sell food, another clothing, while being stationed right next to weapons. It was a mix and match of all sorts. It was also one of the best places to get a bargain. Maybe I could do some odd jobs for one of the stalls in return for an item or two. Stopping at a jewelry store, Reyes was looking at all of the objects that had been made from stones found all across the continent. Jewelry was good for a mage to enchant since they could wear multiple pieces. One had 10 fingers, but didn't have 10 pairs of trousers to switch in between fights. Of course, there was a limit to how many magical items one could use. Otherwise, one would have mages pierced in every section possible, although he did know a mage with a Prince Albert once. Reyes looked at the woman behind the counter. She looked fairly old and was covered in her jewelry, most likely one she had made herself. "Feel free to take a look at whatever you want, young man," the woman said. "I made most of these myself, while some have been traded and shared with as well." What Reyes was looking for was a high-quality item. The materials, as well as who crafted it, was what made the quality of the item better. With this, the effect of enchanting an item with cursed magic would increase, and he wouldn't have to rely on finding a higher-level power stone. The thing was, high-quality items for aesthetic reasons and high-quality items for a mage were completely different. The easiest way to tell if an item was high quality for a mage was to use magic. Reyes lifted his hand and hovered it over each item, and as he did, he activated a small amount of magic in his palm, touching the item ever so softly. The item would then vibrate in response. The more it vibrated, the easier it was to enchant into a higher-level item. The shopkeeper was keeping a keen eye on Reyes, perhaps thinking he would steal and run off with the items. But with how small the amount of magic he used, it would be next to impossible for one to tell what he was doing unless they were a mage. Continuing to do this with each item, nearly all of them were of poor quality until he had reached a rounded black-colored earring. It looked like a ring one would put on their finger, but based on the sharp-pointed ends, it clearly was an earring. Hitting it with magic, it started to vibrate. Even moving the box, it was in slightly. "How much for the black earring?" Reyes asked. "That." She peeked over her display. "Are you sure you don't want any of the other items? That one is quite dull-looking compared to the rest." "I'm sure of it," Reyes replied. The woman clicked her teeth. It was quite clear that the earring didn't match the style of the other items, so it wasn't something she had made, and most likely, it was traded, which was why she was disappointed. "The ring goes for 10 coppers. No less, no more, I don't haggle," the woman said. Often at the temple, Crone would teach the younger children how to read, write, and also a few general things about the world. The currency in Pagna mostly relied on coins, and there were 3 types: copper, silver, and gold. There were some currencies above these, but Crone made it clear that they would never see these in their lifetime, so he didn't bother with teaching them. 100 coppers were worth 1 silver, and 25 silver equaled 1 gold coin. To put that into perspective, a loaf of bread went between 1 to 2 copper coins, depending on the season or how much bread was produced. Although jewelry had a hefty price in his world, he found it hard to believe that there would be those willing to give up 10 loaves of bread for an earring when there were plenty of people who looked underfed. "And how much for one of these?" Reyes pointed at one of the more colorful earrings that were shining with purple decorations. "Oh, you have good taste. That is 2 copper coins," she happily said with a large smile. It was without a doubt that right now he was getting scammed. Right now, he wanted to grab her face and slam it down into the display, but he had to tone down his anger. "I don't even have 2 copper coins, never mind 10. So how am I going to do this?" Reyes thought. The best way to word how he would be able to help her. He didn't want to pull out the power stone again, not unless he was willing to kill the store owner, which was starting to become a possibility in his head. "Oh, if that young man isn't taking the black earring, I'll take it for 10 coppers," a soft voice said. Turning his head to look at who had just taken his item, he could see a woman who was a head shorter than he was, wearing a beret hat with orange hair. "Wait, that's my item," Ray said, "and no one takes my things." What is with all these people getting on my nerves today? Ray thought as he looked at the woman by his side. She hadn't even turned her head after he said those words and was completely ignoring him. Is everyone in this world like this, or what? And I thought Alterian was bad. "Wait, I want that item," Ray called out, but he didn't know what to do next. He had no coins. All he had were his words, and he wasn't exactly the best speaker when it came to this situation. "Young man, are you going to pay me or what?" the shopkeeper asked. "I was hoping I could maybe do some jobs and work for it," Ray said with a smile on his face. She immediately turned to the girl and held out her hand, to which the other person proceeded to hand the coins over, pulling them out from a rather odd purse. It looked like an obese round bird that when squeezed, its yellow beak would open up. After the coins were handed over, the black earring was now in Charlotte's possession, in a nice small square-shaped box. "Wait," Ray called out. Now that the earring was in her possession, he could only hope to do to her what he originally planned to do with the shopkeeper. "I need that earring. It's a present for my sister, and she said that I needed to get that exact one." Charlotte proceeded to look at Ray in the face for a few seconds before a smirk appeared. "What did you say to me before? No one takes my things." Charlotte repeated. "Well, it appears that this belongs to me, and no one takes my things." Just as she had finished her sentence, a small kid around 8 years old reached out and pulled at her purse that was by her side, snatching it off from her belt, and immediately ran through the crowds of people. It was clearly one of the beggar children, the same type that Ray had seen when he first had appeared here. "My money!" Charlotte shouted, with her hand reaching out, but no one cared. The kid was fast and swift, and even she knew that it would be impossible to catch him. But for Ray, he saw an opportunity. "If I get your purse back, will you give me that earring?" Ray asked. Charlotte looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Does this idiot really think he can catch a kid like that? If he could do something like that, then he should at least be able to have 10 coppers on him, right? Regardless, she thought that it might be best for her to humor him. "All right, fine, just go ahead," and Ray had already started running after the kid, away from her sight, when she finished her last words. "Try." She had seen him running relatively fast through the crowds of people, avoiding them. It was quite the sight to see, and even Ray was impressed with himself. Where people's footsteps would be, their bodies, he could predict it all, and he could see the kid continuing to run through the crowd, spinning around, and he was slowly starting to catch up. While swiftly avoiding people, Ray could see himself getting closer and closer to the kid. He was nearly there, until someone had walked dead straight ahead of him, crossing his path to go over to the food stall. "Move!" Ray shouted. He was running too fast to avoid a collision. Hearing the words, the youngster, cloaked in dark red clothing, turned to see the white-haired boy. "I said, move out of the way," Ray shouted as he shoved the young man, touching his shoulder, and pushed him to the side. During the chase, Ray didn't realize how much adrenaline was running through his body and the fact that he was even powering his steps with a bit of chi. He had used chi on the bystander, causing them to be thrown right into the stall. The young man had crashed into the food stall, breaking it apart, while liquid from the cooking pots spilled on top of him. "Argh!" The man screamed in pain from the hot food, and quickly jumped up and down, trying to get as much food off of him as quickly as possible. "That white-haired bastard. Does he want to die?" the young man shouted. "Who was it? I'll make sure he gets 10 times the payback for this." Filled with anger, steam was almost coming out from his ears, but there was one feature that he remembered, and that was the white hair. "Wait a second, white hair. Haven't I seen him before?" After the small incident that Ray was blissfully unaware he had created, he had managed to catch up to the kid, lifting him up by the back of his shirt and snatching the purse out of his hands. "Sorry, kid. I know you're only doing this to survive. You're not at fault," Ray said. He knew the kid would run off as soon as he put him down, for fear that he would hand him over to someone from the clan. So instead, with one hand, Ray flicked a silver coin in the air. The kid, almost on instinct, managed to catch it. Take that and feed yourself, Rays said. And next time, try going after the fat ones. They won't be able to run after you, and they sure have enough money to feed themselves. With those words of wisdom passed along, Rays let go of the kid, who immediately ran off. Looking behind him, Rays had noticed that there was a commotion going on. Did I push someone? Rays looked at his hand. I think I did. It might be best to go the long way round. With this in mind, Rays decided to take a different route on his way back to where he last was. With the purse in his hand, the thought of just taking it with him had come up, but he wanted the earring. There weren't going to be many chances to get an item like that, but money in the future would be easy to get, especially if he found a way to sell the power stones. It didn't take long for him to find the girl still waiting. Rays waved the bag in the air in front of her with a smug smile on his face. I had no clue that you were a Pagna warrior, Charlotte said. I've never met one that was so poor before. How did you know I was a warrior? He asked. You could tell just from what you did then. You move far faster than the others. Are you with the Red Brigade clan then? She asked while attempting to take her purse back, but Rays pulled away just in time and held his hand out. She quickly knew what he wanted and placed the box with the earring inside in his hand, exchanging items with each other. I'm not with any clan, Rays answered, which was the truth. What the? There's less money in here. Did you steal some? Charlotte shouted. No, Rays answered. I gave some to that kid so he could eat for the day. You seem to have enough to fill your stomach and a few more, so why not let that kid not suffer for a moment? Charlotte closed her purse and let out a sigh as she placed it under her hat on the top of her head this time. If I wanted to, I could have just taken the whole thing and left. I have no reason to lie, Rays continued. It's rare to meet a wanderer, but then again, that might be the reason why you're so poor. We could use someone like you. If you need some work, then head over to a pawn shop called Rockcliffe, Charlotte said, turning around and heading in a completely different direction from Rays. Wait, the pawn shop. Isn't that the same pawn that Well, it might be best to avoid her completely then. But why would she be in the pawn shop? Is she with the other two? Just who is she? Rays thought. Now that she was gone, though, Rays had a large smile on his face as he flicked a silver coin in the air. I'm just charging some tax for my services, that's all, and you had to be punished a little for taking my item. It didn't seem like Rays was going to solve his money problems anytime soon, but he did have an avenue. As long as his potions worked, or even if they didn't, he thought that there might be a way for him to utilize Dame. Asking for coins up front would be strange since Dame believed he came from another world. So those coins would be useless in his world, but he could still use him to get precious items. Heck, he didn't even mind if he got him more manuals and taught him more moves now that he had a Danteon full of chi. If possible, Rays wanted to get everything he needed done in town today, and he wanted to leave no traces behind. After his encounter with the strange girl with the beret hat, he thought it was better if others didn't see his face directly. When he was in a quiet and secluded alleyway, he activated the robe and lifted up the hood. After he had managed to acquire 4 bottles that each sold for 1 copper coin each, it left him now with 96 copper coins. Relatively soon after this, he decided that he also needed to buy a purse and had bought one that was purple in color and had a snake pattern on the outside along with a tongue that would pop out. It seemed that these specially designed purses were popular. The purse had cost him a further 3 coins, leaving him with 93 coins. With the coins in the purse, he could now place the whole purse into his robe to store it, and now there would be no incident like what had occurred before. Rays knew full well that if he was to return to the temple, he would be ridden with chores, which would distract him from what he needed to do. He could continue to do things at night, but one of these days he was bound to get caught, which left him in search of an inn. He wasn't planning to stay the night, but still had to pay the day fee, which was a total of 8 copper coins, leaving him with 85. He was quickly seeing the money he had taken going down. Judging by what that girl said before, I wonder how much Pagna warriors get paid, or those that are part clan. Rays thought. She did say she was surprised to see that I didn't even have 10 coins, and considering my body, I guess they do eat a lot as well. Now in the room, Rays was preparing a number of things. First, he had a piece of chalk in his hands. This was something he had taken from the temple, as the children would often draw on the grounds as a way to play with something. He placed 3 crystals on the ground and started to draw a formation around them. A 2-star mage that can perform 2-star enchantments and has a good quality item with a high-grade crystal can obtain higher enchanted items, and with my dark magic effect, it could even turn out to be an elite-grade enchanted item. The enchanted items all had different rankings based on their effects. Common, uncommon, rare, elite, unique, mythical, legendary, god. The current items Ray's had were all at the uncommon level, the ring as well as the robe he was wearing. The potions would be borderline rare, but of course with dark magic enchanted items, there would always be a curse. Saying all of this in his head, there was clearly a problem. He had everything apart from a higher grade crystal. Ray's had only a level 1 power stone, as they called them in the world of Pagna. What he needed was a level 2 power stone, and there was a way to do this without fighting a stronger beast. A formation could be cast, combining 2 level 1 stones together. However, a stone would be used in the process. So to create a level 2 stone, one would need 3 level 1 stones. This special formation could only be used to increase the level of a stone by 1 and no higher. On top of that, the higher the level of stone, the less chance there was of the whole thing working. So this was something that Ray's would only try with the basic level 1 stones he had. Flicking his fingers with his magic, the formation lit up and all 3 of the stones started to vibrate and moved, colliding into each other. A bright glow appeared, and the colored crystal had become slightly more transparent in color, a sign that it was a success. That's good. If it failed, I wasn't going to try that again. I need 1 stone to feed this robe, and 1 to head back and meet Dame. Ray's thought, so he really only had 4 stones to create items with. This wasn't originally part of his plan, but after finding the higher quality item in the market, it was something that he just had to do. Although he was enjoying his new body and his martial arts, magic was still his trump card in this world and the others. Drawing a new formation, this one took a lot more time compared to the last. Formations got more complicated the higher the tier of enchantment, with some taking even several days to finish. This was why there were some mages that only focused on enchantment, and it was quite rare to have an all-arounder like Ray's. Finishing the formation off, Ray's summoned the box out from his robe and pulled out the earring, placing it on the ground. It was the same as before, and with the level 2 power stone, the new magic ritual was beginning. It lit up, and so did the ring in the center. Haha, this has to be an elite-grade item. This is going to be great. As the magic lit up, and the crystal's power was forming with the earring, in the corner of the room, behind Ray's, electric sparks were appearing. They were coming and going, and small portals the size of a fist were opening up. Breaking through the portals, a small black tentacle was leaking through, wriggling about. "It's complete," Ray said, and the magic around the circle had died down. At the same time, the sparks and portals behind him had disappeared. "Tell me the effects of this item," Ray's asked, and the dark magic moved like a whisper. Soon, the dark magic came back with a text in front of him. An elite-grade, cursed black earring. A powerful curse has been left on this earring. The effects have been locked by the curse until the owner can fulfill the following requirements. The earring must be worn by the user, and they must not take off the earring within the full course of 72 hours. During this period, the user must not sleep, eat, or drink. If the user fails to complete the task or does one of the above during this period of time, a curse will be placed. Failure to complete the task will result in the user losing all of their senses. They will slowly go blind, lose their sense of taste, sense of hearing, and sense of smell. If a new person is to wear the earring, the 72 hours will restart. SH*T, SH*T, SH*T. Ray's mumbled to himself, careful not to express his anger too much for the other people who might be staying at the inn. He just couldn't help himself after seeing the effects of the earring. Out of all the possible outcomes, he was hoping that this type of condition didn't come up, but it was most likely so due to the level of the curse. However, he had managed to create a sealed item. Picking it up off the ground, Ray's placed it back in its case and closed it while he let out a big, deep sigh. What Ray's had just created was known as a sealed item. In most cases, finding a sealed item might be a joyous occasion, because when unsealed, the grade of the enchanted item might actually be higher than what it currently was. The current grade of the item, an elite item, was more to do with how tough the conditions were to unbreak the seal. The condition wasn't so much of a problem, but because it was a cursed item, now it meant if a person were to fail in breaking the condition, the user itself would be cursed as well. The reason for his frustration was due to him being so conflicted. He had even opened up the case again and was ready to grab the earring and place it on his ear, stopping a few centimeters away. If I break the seal, I could end up with a mythical rank item, Ray's thought to himself. The highest 3 grades of items, mythical, legendary, and god, weren't usually something someone could just enchant. These items were often ones that were found through the portals in other worlds. There were cases where extremely high-level crystals, along with rare treasures, were used to create these levels of items. To top it off, they would have to come up with their own formations of enchantment. Since enchanting at that high of a level, mages would tend to keep those secrets to themselves. For this to happen, one would have to find multiple things that aligned and needed to put in the hard work, whereas just finding the top-graded items through expeditions was more likely, but in some cases were just as dangerous. They tended to be in dimensions that many had lost their lives in. Mythical items, and above, were items that made one almost have godlike powers. Entire corporations, guilds, and countries would fight over them, which was why one of the Grand Magus who was able to craft mythical and above items was a figure that could do whatever he wished. Idor, the Noble One, as they called him, somewhat the leader of the Grand Magus, and the one that put out the hit on his head. Just thinking about him, dark magic was swirling around the room, and Ray's eyes were turning a shade darker, his pupils expanding. As an example of how powerful these items could be, the book Ray's had found in one of the dimensions was at the legendary rank, and that was the book that contained the ritual that allowed him to transmigrate into the body he was in now. There's also a chance that this could be a complete dud. There is no guarantee, and it could just be an elite grade item, which is good, but not good enough for the risk, Ray's thought. Staying awake for 72 hours is 3 days. It's not an impossible task, but extremely difficult. After the second day of no sleep, one would start to hallucinate. It would be hard to tell a dream from reality. It would be hard to process nearly anything or do basic tasks. The idea of trying to fight against one's natural body to stay awake would be a difficult one without something looming over their head. To top it off, there are more conditions, no food or water, to make the mind descend into further madness. If I attempted this, how would I even explain to Crone or the others what I was trying to do? They would immediately send me to the hospital or even knock me out, forcing me to sleep. Lastly, putting myself in this state, I would be incredibly weak, and while I have not experienced any new assassination attempts, being in that state would just put a larger target on my back. I don't even have to mention why it's bad if I were to fail in succeeding in breaking the seal, either. In the end, it was just too much of a big risk to try, at least for now. Placing the ring away in the robe, he had also placed the robe away and decided to keep the remaining 3 power stones. One to feed the robe, the other to head to the other dimension, and lastly, one to sell if he ever managed to figure out a way to do that. Since Ray's was leaving the town, he had placed the robe away, and he felt that he had done what he needed to do here. It was a shame that the situation had turned out to be a dud, but Ray's had time. He was in a new body, and he had already been improving by leaps and bounds. Luck wouldn't always go the way he wanted. The town had multiple exits and paths that led to different areas, through different forests and vast lands that took people to other cities and areas. For Ray's, he was leaving out of the west exit, which was placed on a slight uphill. This path led through a forest and the temple that was up ahead. Not many people left through the west exit, since they would have to climb up a large mountain to get to the other side. They would usually just take the north or south exit that would allow them to bypass the mountain and go wherever it was they needed to be. Walking down the path, the town was now around a mile away. The rustling of leaves was heard, and stepping on the path, in front of Ray's, was a young boy dressed head to toe in dark red cloth. The only part of his clothing that was a different color was his basic dark brown boots, which went somewhat up his shin. Not many people wore them. In fact, the only people that Ray's knew who wore them were those from the clan. The fact that you have popped out in front of me means you have some business with me? Ray's asked, but I do not know you, so why are you standing in my way? Ray's fingers were twitching slightly, and he was wondering if this was a situation where he would need to use his magic. The uniform he recognized well because he had seen it before. These were the clothes of the Red Brigade, the ones that were disciples. The young man in front of him looked to be the same age as Ray's. He was one of the students who were training to enter the Pagna Academy on behalf of the clan. I knew you would be here, the kid said. I remember seeing your white hair before. You're one of the kids that visited the clan base from the temple, so I knew you would stop here. So are you ready to apologize for what you did? The disciple started to point at himself and showed his stained clothing. The red uniform was stained with an odd brown color that went from his chest down his legs. You want me to apologize because you sh*t yourself? Ray's asked. Are you crazy? The disciple's fist was shaking. Being a disciple of the clan, everyone treated him well and with respect in the town, and being one of the talented students, even the teachers and elders treated him nicely. If he wanted, he could have asked one of them to find the person in question and get them to apologize directly in front of him. This was what being a Pagna warrior meant. Those who were powerful and skillful, showing potential, weren't just treated as if they were above others. They were above others. I gave you a chance to rectify the situation. My name is Von Clough, the disciple declared. As the disciple of the Red Brigade clan, I will rightfully deal punishment. You, who has attacked a disciple for no reason and shown no remorse, is the same as an attack on the clan itself. Ray's knew where this was going, and he couldn't quite believe it. Above others just because they were stronger? This world, it was no different than the last one he left. He swung his hand, ready to use his magic, until he had seen Vaughn shift his feet and was directly in front of him. Then, with the palm of his hand, Vaughn hit Ray's right in the stomach. His body folded inward, and it felt like all of his organs wanted to explode out of his mouth. He was fast, extremely fast. I couldn't even react with my magic in time. Ray's attacks were strong, but what was the point if he couldn't hit his target? From a single hit, his legs were shaking, and his back was hunched. You can still stand. I guess it just means I have to punish you further. Vaughn had moved again, too fast for Ray's to use his magic, so instead, he had decided to use the two-step shift, but had done so backwards. The fist that had been thrown by Vaughn had missed this time. Interesting, so you can use some skills after all. I guess you have a good chi base. No wonder why you could still stand up, but I'm one of the best students. Vaughn proceeded to do the two-step shift, closing the space between the two right after Ray's had done it, and he could suddenly feel his whole head being grabbed. Before he knew it, Ray's head was flung down, and a knee was lifted, hitting him right in the face. Ray's whole body was knocked in the air before it fell to the ground, lying on his back. You're filth who doesn't even know the way the world works. A no-name is not the same as us Pagna warriors. Vaughn then went ahead and stood on top of both of Ray's arms. It might have looked like no big deal, but due to using his power of chi, it felt like a 200 kilograms man was now standing on him. It was impossible for him to lift his hands. Don't touch me. Ray shouted as he screamed and desperately tried to move his body, wiggling his legs and arms. But Vaughn quickly kicked them behind him, making him stop before placing his feet spread apart on top of his arms again. I could see you were trying something with those hands of yours. Too bad you won't get to try it. Now, someone dirted my clothes, so don't you think it's only fair that I at least do the same to you? Looking down at the struggling Vaughn, he spat right on his face. Not once, but 3 times he spat again and again, spreading it out on Ray's. Ray's was grinding his teeth, but from the initial hit, he was really hurt. The chi inside him had been disrupted, and he was finding it hard to focus at all. But in that moment, he did manage to do something. A flicker of darkness surrounded his right hand. He grasped onto something tight, and it didn't go unnoticed. What's that? Vaughn said. Is there something you're holding on to? Maybe something you care about. Vaughn lifted his foot and stomped on Ray's hand, his fingers being crushed by the weight, and out popped a box. What's this? Vaughn asked, walking over to the box. Don't touch that. Ray shouted, getting up and going after the box, to which Vaughn turned around and kicked him in the chin, sending him back again. Ray's laid there on the ground. It was clear from the fight they had just had that Ray's was unable to beat him. He had even thought that even with his magic, it wouldn't have been possible unless he got a lucky hit in. Just as he had been told, even if they were both rank 1 Pagno warriors, there was a vast difference between the two of them. But there was still an odd smile on his face. Bending down, Vaughn picked up the box and opened it up. He could see the black earring inside. He took the earring out and threw the box to its side. "What's this? It's just a stupid earring." Vaughn held it up to the light, but it didn't look like anything special. "But for you to have held on to it tightly this whole time, it must mean something to you, right?" "That's mine. Don't you dare take it. You damn sh** T-box." Ray shouted again. From the comments before, it had just reminded Vaughn of the situation that had occurred, and his anger was rising even more. "Very well. I won't punish you any more than this." Vaughn smiled. "But I shall be taking your precious earring. As punishment, you will have to live with the fact that every time you see me, you will be unable to do anything about taking it back. I shall wear this well for you." Vaughn started to walk back toward the town, not thinking anything about Ray's, who had his head sunken in his chest. His shoulders started to shake, and when Vaughn was finally out of sight, he lifted his head, bursting into laughter. "Ha ha!" Ray's laughed. Enchanted and sealed items were very special in many ways. For one, people were naturally attracted to them. They would begin to obsess over them due to the leaking power that emitted from the items. Those who didn't practice the use of mana seemed to be even more affected by items. But regardless of that, Ray's knew well that Vaughn would take the item based on his personality. The thing was, enchanted items' effects could only appear in front of a mage once they used their magic with the right incantation. However, their effects still worked, just not the way they would normally do. Meaning, Vaughn would have no way of telling the effects of the earring. "Enjoy your gift, Vaughn." Brushing off the dirt from his clothing, Ray's noticed that his body was a bit sore. His arms were hurting the most from the pain that Vaughn had dealt him by stepping on them, but there were no broken bones. The most pain that had been inflicted on him was to his core, the chi in his body. Ray's could feel that it was disrupted from a strike. Is that something Pagna warriors can do? I guess there might be a way to stabilize this a bit, Ray's thought. While walking on his way back slowly, Ray's was breathing in slowly, trying to focus on the main points of the technique that he had learned. He could feel the chi in his body stabilizing, and the energy was spreading out to his muscles, making them feel better as well. This chi and body of a martial artist is an impressive thing. I wonder if this is how Safa was also able to heal quicker than normal as well. Ray's touched his nose that was sore. The flesh wounds. These were things that he wouldn't be able to heal, and Crone would ask questions about it. He might even panic seeing me in this state, wondering if someone was sent to attack me. I guess I'll just have to deal with that. Ray started to smile, because he was just imagining what would be happening to the special Vaughn tonight. "I gave you a chance." Ray's thought. "I used the robe's special effect to summon the earring box out of my robe and held it in my hand. You had a choice. You didn't have to take the earring out from my hand. You had already punished me, but you decided to go a step further, taking something you believe that I cared about. Now, this is just something that will come back to you." The night sky had come out, and Vaughn had returned to the Red Brigade base. The disciples stayed in separate buildings and dorms compared to the rest of the teachers. The lower disciples shared rooms together, sleeping in one big hall and training with each other, while the higher disciples, such as Vaughn, had been given more attention by the clan. They were tutored directly by some of the best Pagno warriors the clan had. In turn, they were given a private room to themselves. This was natural for nearly all clans. They treated those that were talented better than the others, as they were to reward them in the future, and on top of that, it encouraged others to work harder to get a better life. It was the way of the Pagno warrior. At the moment, Vaughn was getting ready for a good night's rest. He had placed his clothes in the community wash basket where the lower disciples would clean them in the morning. At the moment, he was wearing next to nothing, looking at himself in the mirror in his room. "You did well today." Vaughn smiled at himself. "You are one that is going to change this clan." You are the hope of the Red Brigade to reach new heights. You are the chosen one, and anyone that tries to get in your way is getting in the clan's way. On the desk, the earring was visible in the open box. Picking it up, Vaughn placed it next to his ear, seeing how it looked on him. As he inspected the earring, he noticed that it was a little strange. It didn't really have a small metallic part that pierced into one's ear. At least one wasn't visible anyway. Still, a part of it was open, and it was too small to fit on a finger. So he thought the only thing it had to be was an earring. How do you even put this thing on? Is it even an earring? Vaughn lifted it up and placed it next to his ear. He didn't have any type of intention to put it on, but when he placed it around his ear, he felt a sharp pinch. Ow! Did it just pierce my ear? Vaughn saw a small trickle of blood falling from his earlobe. The pain was sudden, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a little sore if you want to touch it. Still, he couldn't help but find it strange. He had never heard of a self-piercing earring before, and he couldn't even remember touching anything on it. Fiddling around, running his finger around the earring, Vaughn was trying to find a way to open it, but to no avail. He tugged at the earring a bit, and that didn't work either. Crap, how'd I get this thing off? It's not getting off. The last thing Vaughn wanted to do was pull it off and tear his earlobe, leaving a scar on his body. He cared as much about his looks as he did about his skills. I guess I'm just going to have to find that guy again. Vaughn smiled. I wanted to show him I was wearing this thing in front of his face anyway. I can't wait to see the look on his face. With the earrings still on, Vaughn laid down in his bed. He looked at the ceiling with his hands behind his head, thinking about his future. It was routine for him. He could already see it, entering the Pagna Academy, rising to the top, and coming back to the clan, being selected as the next master. Eventually, his eyes started to close, and he went into a deep slumber. At that moment, the earrings started to light up, and from it, dark magic started to seep out as a mist. It covered Vaughn's body from head to toe, making changes in his body that he was unaware of. You have failed to unlock the sealed item. The item has cursed the user. Effects of the curse will now begin. The night had passed, and the sun was rising as usual. Rays of light filtered through the partially drawn curtain, casting a gentle glow on Vaughn's face. Slowly, he started to open his eyes, noticing that his vision was a bit blurry, similar to when one had a few tears in their eyes. He rubbed his eyes, hoping it would clear the blurriness, but it persisted. Massaging his tear ducts didn't help either. Vaughn couldn't understand why his vision had worsened overnight. As a Stage 1 Pagna warrior, impurities in his body should have been removed, and issues like deteriorating eyesight shouldn't occur, unless his eyes were damaged or he had been poisoned. To his right, the door opened, and he hastily covered his upper body, as he usually slept somewhat bare. Vaughn, you need to get up for morning practice. You're a bit late, one of the other disciples called. All right, already, Vaughn replied. You could have at least knocked before you came in. I did. I knocked a few times. It's not my fault you're deaf, the disciple said before leaving annoyed. Vaughn's vision was only slightly deteriorated. He could still read and see the disciples' faces clearly up close. However, at a distance, things began to blur. He decided to ignore it for now and headed off to his morning training. At the Red Brigade clan, students usually started their day with a morning run and unarmed sparring before breakfast. Being a bit late meant that Vaughn had missed the morning routine, and the students were already engaged in sparring. They fought using only their fists with no chi involved for a minute, and then switched to new partners. Vaughn and his opponent exchanged hits, blocking and attacking each other. After a minute, they moved on to their next partners. In between rounds, Vaughn was vigorously rubbing his eyes. Are you okay? His current sparring partner asked. Vaughn's eye rubbing continued, and he could barely hear something faint. He looked up to see his opponent, but his hearing was muffled, and his vision had deteriorated further. He could only distinguish the general shape of the disciple in front of him, with a few characteristics here and there. Are you okay? The disciple asked again. Yeah, I'm fine. Vaughn replied with a hoarse voice that came and went as he spoke, as if he had spent the whole night screaming. This, too, was something that shouldn't have affected a Stage 1 Pagna warrior. I'm sorry. I think I need to go somewhere, Vaughn said, rushing off and leaving the clan base. Because of his status as a disciple, He wouldn't get into too much trouble for leaving, especially if he stated his reason, which he hadn't done this time, but it would be no big deal. As Vaughn walked through the town, he tried to figure out what had happened to him. My voice, my hearing, and my vision. Why have all of them deteriorated? Was it something to do with that white-haired kid? During their scuffle, although he looked desperate at times, there were also moments where Vaughn could have sworn he saw the other person smiling. It was hard for him to believe, as no one in that situation would have been able to smile. It might have been this strange earring as well. It did come from that kid. Maybe he knows something about it, Vaughn thought. Right now, he could still see, hear, and speak, but everything was slightly worse than usual. So Vaughn decided to go to the main suspect, the person in question. It would be embarrassing for him to report it to the higher clan members if it turned out the kid had nothing to do with it. If things didn't improve, he would speak to the clan about visiting a physician. As Vaughn walked through the forest and up the winding stairs, he started to notice that the temple in the distance was getting blurrier and the world around him was quieting down. It was as if his head were underwater and his senses were fading. Sprinting to the top, Vaughn crossed the temple walls and entered the training courtyard. Most temple kids were outside sweeping leaves when they saw someone from the Red Brigade arrive. Is that a disciple? Yeah, he's wearing the clothing. It has to be the disciple. Is he looking for Sir Crone? Many of the young children in the town shared the dream of becoming Pagna warriors. However, this aspiration often waned as they grew older and learned about the difficulties and challenges that came with such a path. Still, living in a town with a clan nearby, everyone recognized the disciples of the Red Brigade clan. However, the one who had just arrived was acting rather peculiar. Maybe I should go see what he wants, Simeon said, starting to walk over. But he stopped in his tracks as Reyes stepped in front of him. After making an excuse to crone about taking a tumble and landing on his nose while trying to test his strength, Reyes had also insisted on taking a different job that would allow him to be outside in the sunlight. Crone, not thinking much of it, had accepted his request, and it had all led to this moment. Hey, are you looking for someone? Reyes asked loudly. Or are you having trouble seeing them? As Reyes shouted these words, Vaughn turned his head, and he could see the white-haired figure before him. Yo! Vaughn attempted to speak, but his voice came out strained, sounding as if only air were escaping his lips. What did he do to me? What is it? He knows. He definitely knows. Are you having trouble speaking as well? Reyes asked. Those words. What was it? Was it the earring? I'll kill him. I'll kill him. Vaughn's attempts to scream yielded no words, and his vision deteriorated rapidly. It became a chaotic mesh of colors, and he grew desperate, striking out in front of him, but hitting nothing. The sounds around him faded into nothingness. Falling to his knees, tears streamed down his face, but he couldn't even feel them. It was then that he realized he might have lost his sense of touch as well. Panic consumed him. He reached around the side of his face and felt the earring that was attached. At this point, he no longer cared about potential scarring. He just wanted to get better, to return to the way he was. With a surge of desperation, he ripped the earring from his earlobe and flung it away. He had no idea where it landed, but his condition showed no sign of improvement. Vaughn began slamming the ground, causing the tiles beneath him to break. Amidst the chaos, one of the temple kids ran inside and brought out Crone. The sight of the red uniform caught Crone's attention, and he rushed over. What's wrong? Why are you here? Has something happened? Crone asked as Vaughn continued to strike blindly, unable to hear or see. Corn avoided the hits, and due to the situation, he was left with no choice but to strike at the back of his head, knocking him out. I'll be heading into the town quickly to see what's going on. I won't be away for long, Crone said before hurrying away. Meanwhile, Reyes stared blankly at the spot where Vaughn had been. He reflected on his actions. If people knew what I had done, some might think that I was cruel, Reyes thought, but I've been punished by allowing people like you to live more times than I can count. You attacked me over a few words. You didn't stop at a simple beating. You humiliated me with your spit as well. And then, when you believed something was precious to me, you took it away. As you continue with your life, never facing consequences for your actions, you would grow up to believe? It was only natural for you to take what you want without thinking about others. That earring wasn't precious to me, but in the past, I allowed someone like you to get off with light punishment, and they took away something very precious to me. So I won't make that mistake again. Reyes searched the courtyard for the earring, recalling the direction in which Vaughn had thrown it. However, he couldn't locate it. I was sure it went here. It has to be here. Unless, did someone pick it up? Reyes wondered. Inside the temple, most of the kids decided to rest while Crone was away. They relaxed in their rooms, except for one person in particular who sat on his bed, holding a black earring in his hand. Why did I pick this up? Simeon thought, puzzled by his own actions. Seeing the state that Vaughn had acted in, Crone knew something was up. The child was not his responsibility, which was why he had immediately gone to the clan base. Vaughn had eventually woken up, and all of the elders were in shock at his actions. He wandered about, stumbled over his own legs, and was banging the floor constantly. No matter what they did, they were unable to get through to him. They called out, asked him questions, but none of it was working. There was no response back. They had even tried to get him to write what had happened, how he had become this way, but with his sense of touch gone, he couldn't even hold a brush properly. Eventually, Vaughn was even unable to walk, as he was unable to sense his legs. This was as much as Crone had witnessed before heading back to the temple. He had told them what he knew, how Vaughn was in this state when he had found him. It was their guess that he had stumbled there after receiving this condition, whatever it was, because they believed he had no reason to be there. With no clue as to what was going on, they took Vaughn to the physician, with one of the clan members guiding him. At the moment, he was laid out on the bed, his mouth open. They had force-fed him some food, closing and opening his mouth for him. It was quite amazing that they still had gotten him to swallow, but for how much longer, it was hard for them to tell. I have never come across a case like this before, the physician said. I will continue trying what I can, but as of right now, I wouldn't count on his state changing. He will continue to live, but not in the same way as he did before. This news had reached the elders of the Red Brigade clan, and a meeting was called between them, as this was a big loss to them all, because it was one of their rising talents. In the master's main hall, chairs had been set up, and 6 of the elders, including the master Jan, were sitting opposite each other around 4 meters away in each direction. All of the elders were sitting apart from each other, as they would do when having a meeting. I have to ask, one of the other elders spoke up, stroking his large beard that dangled to his chest. Do we perhaps believe that what has happened to Vaughn is the same as the rest of the death-related incidents that have been occurring around town? I believe this is separate. Jan answered immediately before there could be any such rumors. This does not fit anything that has happened before, but I can't say we can rule it out, as at the moment we have no leads. It's the demon faction, one of the elders yelled, jumping out of his seat, nearly pushing his chair over. They have always had ambitions to rule over the entire continent through whatever means are possible to them. They are worse than the light faction, taking out our talent before they even have a chance to grow. Calm down, Donovan. Jan waved his hand, telling him to take a seat. Although I agree with your views on the demonic faction, it makes no sense for them to go after a small clan like ours. For now, we just have to keep a closer eye on this town, for I fear even worse things are to come. Inside his room, Simeon was continually staring at the earring that was in his hand. There was something fascinating about it. When he saw it on the floor, right by his foot, something had drawn him to it. Eventually, he had picked it up, and there was a strange sensation over his body, as if it was informing him he had done the right thing. After giving it a wipe, it was now in his hand, but he had yet to put it on. This came from that disciple. It looked like he had gone a bit crazy and tore this thing off. It makes me wonder if it's expensive. Maybe I can even sell it for some coin, Simeon thought. While it was in his hand, he was reluctant to let it go, and continued to twirl it around, looking at every detail of the earring. Yet there seemed to be nothing special about it, but he felt like he was holding onto something like a diamond in his hand. Catching himself in this strange state, Simeon placed the ring on his bedside counter and turned away, looking at his room's wall. It was only a few moments later that he had turned around and had picked up the earring as well. Now, sitting up, he held it in his hand and was bringing it ever closer to his ear. What am I doing? This literally just came off the ear of someone else. It's pretty disgusting if I put it on like this. Leaving his room, Simeon had traveled to the kitchen, and after giving it a quick rinse with a hose, he lifted it in the air and brought it to his ear again. Now it should be okay, ouch. Simeon screamed a little. He had only brought it to his ear. The last thing he had suspected was that it would attach itself to him and pierce him. Touching his earlobe, he could feel that the earring was now on him. He tried tugging and pulling, but there was no success in removing the thing. I have a bad feeling about this, Simeon thought. A little worried, he decided to head toward his room. As he was heading out, he bumped into Safa, who looked to be starting cleaning duty in the main hall. Even though Crone wasn't back yet, she had decided that she would get a head start on some chores. She smiled at Simeon, and he smiled back, but then she started to stare at him for a few seconds before pointing to the new accessory he had on him. "Oh, do you like it? Do you think it suits me?" Simeon asked. Quite quickly, she shook her head, which just made Simeon a little more depressed since he couldn't remove this thing. "Hey, I'll have you know that I'm starting a fashion trend. Soon all of the kids at the temple will want to wear an earring like this one." The comment had made Safa chuckle a little, and she was soon continuing her duties. In the middle of her cleaning, surprisingly, Reyes, who had been outside nearly this whole time, had entered the main hall and started to approach her. Her heart started to beat a little faster. It was rare that he would come up to her first, unless it was a telling off of some sort. "Hey, while you're cleaning, look out for a small black earring. It's a small loop-type one that looks like a ring," Reyes said. "And if you do find it, come to me straight away, and whatever you do, don't wear it." The item was a dangerous one, and as a thank you for obtaining the original owner's body, he thought the least he could do was warn his sister. But after telling her of such things, Reyes could see the look on her face with her mouth slightly ajar. "You've seen it, haven't you? Tell me, where is it now?" Safa stood there for a moment and stared back into Reyes' eyes. She was trying to gauge just what he was feeling right now. Based on his reaction, he knew about the earring. So, did that mean it belonged to him? He did. After all, tell her to give it to him if she was to stumble upon it, and she knew how Reyes was about his things. If he was to find out that Simeon had it, then what would Reyes do to him? Would it be the same as what happened to Gren? Safa hadn't even seen the state of Gren, but she was sweating on behalf of Simeon if Reyes was to find out. On the other hand, she started to think, wasn't this something that Reyes would find out sooner or later anyway? And if that was the case, maybe it would be better if Simeon was found out while Safa was there. That way, she could try her best to calm Reyes down if need be. Pumping her fist and a small nod of her head, she thought this was the right thing to do. It was the least she could do after Simeon had stood up for her and even took a beating on her behalf. He was a good person. Safa nodded her head and pointed to her own ear, acknowledging that she knew about the earring. She then used two of her fingers to symbolize walking, with another hand behind. For some reason, Reyes understood what Safa was asking him. She was telling him to follow her. "So, she knows where the ring is?" Reyes followed Safa through the hall, and she was heading to the other side, where some of the kids at the temple stayed. "This isn't our room, so does that mean one of the other kids found it after all?" Wild thoughts were running through Rey's head. He needed to prepare for the worst, but there was still a chance. Just because someone found the ring didn't mean they would wear it. A knock was made at the door, but there was no response on the other end. Regardless, Safa had decided to slide the door open and head inside anyway, and Reyes had followed. The rooms were small, so it didn't take long for the two of them to see Simeon lying on his bed, his eyes closed with the earring on his ear. "Wake up!" Reyes shouted immediately. "Huh?" Simeon opened his eyes and was startled to see the two of them in the room and pushed his back up against the wall. "What are you two doing here? Did you fall asleep?" Reyes asked immediately. Ignoring everything else, it was the worst outcome possible. Not only had someone found the earring, but they were already wearing it, and if he had fallen asleep, it would have been too late. "No, I just shut my eyes." "Why are you asking? What are you two doing here?" Simeon said, still a little panicked, but he was starting to calm down. When looking at Safa, he didn't want to show such a side to himself, so he quickly recomposed and pulled himself together. "If you really just shut your eyes, then why didn't you answer before?" Reyes asked. "I was deep in thought. And does it even matter if I fall asleep or not? This is my room." Simeon argued back. Sappho was standing in the middle of the two. She was turning her head back and forth because she thought a fight was going to break out any second. But that was when Reza decided to back off and started to bite his thumbnail. This situation, when I made the ring, I never envisioned this was going to happen. But what do I do now? Reyes looked at Simeon. He seemed fine, and he couldn't feel the presence of a curse on his body. That still didn't change another fact, that Simeon had put on the earring. It's no doubt that if Simeon falls asleep, he will suffer a cruel fate. One, that is my mistake. Although I have no strong feelings towards him. For some reason, he never told Crone about what he saw that day either. It isn't fair. I should at least give him a chance to fight back. That earring, Reyes pointed. It's something that you should have never worn, but now you have done so. We cannot undo what has been done. Simeon gulped. He didn't know what Reyes was talking about, but just the serious look on his face, going along with his tone that was telling him the situation was grave, was worrying for him. And ever since he had put on the earring, he had a bad feeling. What I'm about to tell you may sound like some type of fantasy to you, but believe me, it is very real. For anyone who wears that earring, they are not to remove it. You are not to sleep for the next 72 hours, nor eat or drink. If you do, a curse will fall on your body, you'll go blind, you'll go deaf, and lose all of your senses. Reyes didn't need to explain about magic. He didn't need to tell him where the ring came from or how he knew all of this, because all of that would be pointless if Simeon couldn't survive. Come on. Simeon nervously laughed. Reyes, that's kind of a cruel joke. Come on, man. I'm already worried about this thing. Look, if you want it, I would give it to you, but the damn thing won't come off. Reyes looked deep into Simeon's eyes before saying the next words. It's not a joke, Simeon. Do you know who had that earring before you? Don't you remember how that disciple from the Red Brigade clan acted? If you do any of the things I mentioned, then you will become the same as him, and there is no cure. If you don't believe me, you can ask Crone when he returns. Sappho knew Reyes had been doing some strange stuff at night, and somehow he had managed to get his hands on Power Stones. To her, it didn't sound like Reyes was lying, especially with the warning he had given her as well. Looking at Simeon, she just nodded as well. Simeon placed both hands at the side of his head and started to curl up into a ball. But how? It's just an earring. What is this thing? I thought it was some weird sh*T when it attached to my ear like that. 3 days. 3 days no food or sleep. Is that even possible? Simeon was already affected just from learning the task ahead of him. With the way he was acting now, he was bound to fail. For a couple of minutes, he just sunk his head into his legs until he eventually looked up at Reyes. Reyes, you seem to know a lot about this earring, so I have to ask you, what happens if I succeed? Does it just mean that I won't be affected and can take off the earring, or is there a chance that I might become strong, like you? This response was surprising to Reyes. Was this a little bit of hope? Was this what Simeon needed to be able to get through this? For him, things had just gotten interesting, and a smile appeared. If you succeed, you'll have power out of this world. Initially, there was a lot of shocks going through Simeon's system. The horror of the task and the reality of what might happen to him if he were to fail. The hardest part of the task was not knowing truly how difficult it would be. It wasn't as if Simeon had attempted to stay awake for 3 days. As for the other conditions, he had experienced them before. It had been a long time, but the combination of all those things would have surely been different. One good thing was, for now, he hadn't asked a lot of questions. Eventually, Crone had returned, and when he did, he had asked the children a few questions about what they had seen. He didn't go into detail with his questioning because the kids were all giving him roughly the same answers. They hadn't seen much because he had only been at the temple for a few minutes and didn't say a single word. Eventually, nighttime had come, and Sappho and Reyes had agreed to take it in turns to look over Simeon. Reyes would stay in his room the first night, making sure that he didn't sleep, hitting him whenever he felt drowsy or talking to him. Sappho would take over the second night, and Reyes would look over him for the final night, which would be the hardest. All of this was to give him the best chances of survival. As for food and drink, they had a plan for that as well. They would inform Crone that Simeon wasn't feeling well, and that they would bring his drink and food to his room. Either Sappho or Reyes would then gobble it up, preferably away from Simeon. When in a hungered state, the worst thing was having it shoved in your face when you could do nothing about it. And so the first evening had come, and Reyes was standing up against the wall with his eyes closed while Simeon was sat up on his bed. The two of them had stayed silent for a couple of hours now, and Simeon couldn't take it. Hey, I'm just going to start rambling on. If I don't do anything, then I think I'm going to doze off before I know it. That's all right, yeah? Reyes opened his eyes and gave a slight nod. He clearly wasn't a person of many words. You know, when I first heard what this earring might do to me, I thought, why me? Why is my luck so bad? Simeon asked. I came from town, only a little smaller than this one. Maybe you would call it a village more than a town. It was a place where everyone knew each other, and out of all the places possible, a portal break happened right there in my village. Horrid monsters came out, killing everyone left, right and center. It wasn't something that happened in an instant either. The adults tried to fight back, but they were no match, and me and my sister, we hid. The two of us hid from the monsters with no food and no water for a few days. At first, the pain was unbearable, but eventually I got used to it. It's strange, the pangs would come and go, intense, but the feeling would go away. Even now, it's almost impossible to remember the pain. Simeon then placed his hand, not on his stomach, but on his heart instead. But there's a pain that I can't forget. My sister, she had given me all our food, all of the water we had at the beginning, and eventually she passed away, and the pain of losing her has never gone away. So, now you might understand why I have a go at you, now and then, for not looking after your sister, but I'm glad you secretly care. Simeon chuckled. Reyes didn't comment on anything that Simeon said, but he made sure to listen to his story well, because it reminded him a bit about his past. Back then, if there was someone who had listened to him, someone who had guided him, would he have taken a different path and never have become the Dark Magus? But there's a large difference in our stories, Reyes thought. Simeon's anger can be directed towards the beast that killed his family, while mine is towards other humans. I know a part of your story from before, Reyes said. But how did you end up surviving? Was it because of Crone? Simeon shook his head. I told you I wanted to become a Pagna warrior because one saved me, but it wasn't Crone. It wasn't even someone from the Dark faction. Actually, there's this clan called the Crimson Crane. They're probably the biggest and most famous wandering clan there is. Wandering clan? It was the first time Reyes had heard of something like this. It's what it sounds like. It's a clan that doesn't belong to any of the three major factions and roams through the lands. At the time, a man named Tylan had killed all the beasts from the portal break and then found me. That's why I want to become a Pagna warrior. No, not a Pagna warrior. I just want to become strong so I can stop these portal breaks before they make more people like me. So I don't care how I get that power. If this earring can grant it, then I'll fight through this and survive. The words Simeon had said, I don't care how I get power, were the same words that Reyes had repeated through his head a few times, and hearing it, inside, he was rooting for the kid. Just don't end up like me. Otherwise, you'll live a sh*T life like I did. The first night was relatively easy for both of them. Reyes was used to a lack of sleep, due to him going out during the night anyway, and Pagna warriors didn't need as much sleep either. For Simeon, he just felt a little hungry once in a while. The worst feeling for now was the first, as his lips were drying up a little, but they all knew that the first day would be the easiest. The two siblings went through their plan, with next to no trouble at all. They informed Crone that Simeon was feeling sick, and when he went to check on him, it certainly seemed that way. Simeon had managed to stop Crone from taking him to the physician, saying that he would get better in a few days just with some rest, and if he wasn't better after 5 days, then they should take him to the physician. It was quite surprising how slick Simeon could be with his words. Things went by quite quickly, and Reyes was also surprised by the determination of Simeon. He had come in a few times and could see nail marks in the palm of his hand. While the two of them were away, he must have been close to dozing off, but had tried to inflict pain on himself in order to stay awake. Now, it was the second night which had come, and this was where things were starting to worsen. Safa couldn't speak, so she tried to communicate with books, pointing to the words, but it was hard for Simeon to focus. His head was banging with pain, and his stomach felt like it was trying to eat itself, as his muscles tensed up hard. When he tried to look at the words, he was reading them, but they weren't registering in his head, as if he knew what he was saying but didn't understand the words. "I don't understand." "Okay," Simeon shouted, as another wave of the hunger pangs came over him. "I'm sorry, Safa. It's not you. You know, it's just everything I'm going through. Please, whatever I do, if I snap at you, shout at you, forget all of it. It isn't me," Simeon said. Rather than speaking, Safa decided to go with another technique for the rest of the night, and it was slapping Simeon's leg every time it looked like he was dozing off. At first, the slaps started off small, but they got larger and larger until his leg was raw red. "Ah!" Simeon screamed but held it in, trying not to wake up the others. Tears started to fall down his face, not because of the pain, but because of everything he was going through. He felt like he was going mad. All he wanted to do was sleep. Why couldn't he just rest his brain for a moment? The second day had finally come to an end, and Safa was thankful that she didn't have to go through the third night with Simeon, because she had no clue how she was going to help him get through it. Seeing everything, she began to tear up, but made sure that Simeon wasn't there to see her tears. While the two were away, they had to trust that Simeon could get through it for a couple of hours on his own. The children were busy having breakfast when they heard a loud horn noise from the outside. "Isn't that the Red Brigade clan's signal?" Crone mumbled to himself as he stood up and ventured outside. In the courtyard, he could see not just a single member of the Red Brigade, but it looked like a full squad of 6, one of them including Sonny. "I, Rapson, squad leader of the 2nd Division, am here on orders of the Red Brigade clan to collect rays on suspicion of harming a disciple of the clan." The kids at the temple watched as they saw the Red Brigade clan enter the temple and place rays in metal cuffs. These cuffs were made of a thick, heavy, black material, unlike the ones used on Altarian. These cuffs were made of a special material that not even those at the peak of the initial stage could break out of. It was something Rays had never come across, and he wasn't even sure if his magic would do the trick. Escorted by 2 Pagna warriors on either side, they led him down the stairs while Crone stood by Safa's side for support, not saying a word. Before they had put Rays in cuffs, they had given him a brief explanation as to why they had done so, because he was suspected of harming a disciple. Since coming here, there were a few people that Rays had done harm to. The Pagna warrior that tried to kill him, the pawn shop owners, Grin, and last but not least, Vaughn, the disciple of the Red Brigade clan. "I wonder how they managed to suspect me," Rays thought, as he followed the others and eventually left the temple completely. He shouldn't have been able to speak, and if he lost all of his senses, he wouldn't have been able to hear their questions or write. Could it be, does the world of Pagna have something that can heal the sealed curses? Something that not even the 9-star mages of Altarian could complete. During the walk through the forest and through the town, not a single word was said to Rays, and he reciprocated by staying silent. In this type of situation, it wouldn't be surprising for a kid to remain quiet. There were many looks from the onlookers, but there wasn't too much shock, as this was something that occurred once in a while. The clan was employed on behalf of the local kingdom, so it was their job to uphold justice. Other than other Pagna warriors, one couldn't really go against them in the first place. So they would bring them in and hold them before carting them off to the main city to be locked up. Eventually, Rays had entered the base, but he wasn't taken to the main buildings or the buildings at the side. Instead, he was taken to an area behind the main building, a crude, worn-down building at the back. A few guards stood outside the building, and upon heading inside, it was quite obvious what the place was, a holding cell. Passing by the other cells, he could see what looked like drunks and a few disgruntled older men, but no one that appeared dangerous. It just made it clear that the town and the clan itself wasn't a dangerous place. With the cuffs still on, Rays had been placed in a small room where he couldn't even lie down. At most, he would have been able to stretch his arms and touch all sides of the walls, but due to the cuffs, he could only move his arms up and down. With that, the other clan members left him be. Are they just going to lock me up and keep me here? Rays thought. No trial, no explanation of what happened, or how they even found out it was me. I mean, I am guilty, but where's the evidence? Although Rays was unable to break the locks, he could still use his magic through his hands. If he wanted to, he could blast away the weakened walls, but he wondered where that would leave him. I guess if the situation goes from bad to worse, I could always escape to that other world and meet up with Dame. If the item did him well, he could protect me for a while, Ray's thought. After around an hour or so, footsteps were heard down the hallway, and eventually, they had stopped right in front of Ray's cell. "How are you doing in there?" Sonny asked. "That was a stupid question to ask. I guess you're worried sick and have no clue what's going on." Based on how Sonny was acting and the fact that he had come in on his own, Ray's realized that this wasn't on orders, and maybe he would be able to get some information from him. "You're right. I have no idea what's happening right now. Why did they say I hurt a disciple? It's not even something I'm capable of," Ray said. Sonny looked to his left and then placed both hands on the bars as he went in closer. "The situation isn't looking the best right now," Sonny whispered. "You know the clan was already suspicious of you because you managed to survive back then. Jan told you that, and honestly, you were never clear to being a suspect. As for the disciple that was injured, the physician was able to get some information out of him. The kid, he can't speak, he can't hear, and he can't see, but I heard he can still cultivate chi inside to a certain degree. The physician tried to help him restore some of his functions through chi. It must have powered through his body and allowed him for a moment to get back some of his senses. The disciple did two things. He mumbled white hair and also wrote down the words white hair as well. They tried the same trick again, but it only seemed to work once. Now, just because you have white hair doesn't mean they outright think it's you, but you're high up on the list due to the other incident as well, and other than the old ones, there aren't really many with white hair." In some ways, hearing this news was a bit of relief. Since they hadn't figured out a way to cure Vaughn, it meant that the blame couldn't 100% be pinned on him. The clan was unsure about punishing someone who was just a kid. The clan right now, they're waiting on some experts to come and interrogate you. An eyebrow was raised. What kind of experts could confirm the truth? Was that even possible? If it was a mage, they could perhaps cast a spell that looked into one's memories or force them to reveal the truth. But based on what Rays knew about the Pagna, they weren't capable of such things. A click, followed by a creak, was heard. The Red Brigade members had come in, and they weren't alone. Along with them were the two experts. Sonny had run out of time. He wanted to ask Rays if it was him or learn something. If he did find out something, what would he have done? That he didn't even know himself. The Red Brigade members lined up in front of the cell, and lifting his head, Rays could see the experts by their side. "It's you," the woman said. The voice was a familiar one, and out of all that he thought he would see, he never thought he would come across the woman from the market, Charlotte, and standing by her side was her large friend, Himi. "It's nice to meet you," Himi winked. It was the last night for Simeon, and originally, Rays was meant to cover it. He had been taken away in the morning, and there was no sign of him coming back anytime soon. The children had even asked Mr. Crone about what had happened to Rays, but he gave lackluster answers such as they just wanted to speak with him. Maybe due to Sappho living a life without speaking, she had become quite versed in reading facial expressions, and she could tell Crone was lying. Many of the children could too, as they had heard what the Red Brigade squad had said when they first arrived. During the night, Sappho had snuck into Simeon's room. With Rays not being there, it was her turn to take over, and with not having slept much the night before, she was pretty exhausted as well. But all of those feelings nearly disappeared in an instant. Simeon was constantly slapping the side of his face, which had swollen up a bit from him repeatedly hitting himself. There were scratches on the side as well, as he had dug his nails into different parts of his skin in a way to keep himself awake in any way possible. "Someone, help me," Simeon mumbled. "Please, Rays, is that you?" "Rays." Simeon hadn't even turned his head, and even if he did, Sappho was unsure if Simeon would recognize it was her instead of Rays. Immediately, she started to tear up. What was she meant to do in this situation? How was she meant to help? The person that Simeon was calling for wasn't even here, and Simeon had no clue what had even happened to him now. If she did anything to inform him that Rays had gone somewhere, would his hope be lost? Moving closer, Sappho eventually climbed on the bed. She could see Simeon was still slapping his face. His eyes were fluttering in and out. It almost looked like he was having a seizure while awake. When she sat by his side, she went to grab his hand. "No, no," Simeon shouted. "I need to stay awake." With his other hand, He started to dig his nails in his saffron now, drawing blood, but she didn't shout and kept the pain in. If this was a way to help Simeon get through this, then she would. Inside the cell, Reyes was looking at the orange-haired girl with the beret hat on her head. She had stood out to him in the market stall that day, so she was easily recognizable, and a large man in the brown overcoat stood next to her. These two, they must be the two experts that were called in, but they aren't dressed like members of the Red Brigade. I remember the girl was even asking about me helping her out. I thought we might meet again, but I never expected it to be in a situation like this. I thought it was too good to be true for there to just be a wandering Pagna warrior in a town like this, she sighed. The way Charlotte was talking made it sound as if they had already decided that he was guilty, which he was, but it still frustrated Reyes to no end. Who are you guys? Reyes asked, wondering what it was that they could do that the others couldn't. My name is Hemi, and this is my assistant Charlotte. Hemi introduced the two of them as if they were in some type of formal meeting, even placing his hand out. We are part of an organization that works with several clans across the continent. One of the Red Brigade members cleared his throat, interrupting them, clearly trying to inform them that this matter wasn't so important. Hemi gave a glance back and shook his head a little. You guys understand nothing about trying to get the truth out of people, but very well, Hemi straightened his stance. The important thing is we will be the ones that will be running this interrogation, so we shall get to know each other very well. Letting Reyes out of his cell with two standing by his side and one behind, they walked over to the main base. The large man was humming along as he stepped 1 foot in front of the other. The way he acted, it was almost as if the situation had occurred 100 times, and this was just something that he was doing again, going through the motions. After entering the main base, they walked to one of the large rooms that Reyes had been in before. It was the room that belonged to Head Elder Jan. As they walked in, he was present with his back facing away from them. Reyes, Jan called out, saying his name in a tone the same way a father would who is disappointed in his own son. I was hoping that things wouldn't have come to this honestly, but too many coincidences have occurred that don't stack up. Truth be told, these two are going to visit you at the temple to question you about the day your family died. You see, they have their ways of getting the results that we need. Anyway, with what has happened to Vaughn and him claiming it was done by someone with white hair, we couldn't let you escape before learning the truth. Jan finally turned around and walked toward the exit. Just before he passed Reyes, he stopped and looked him directly in the eye. For your sake, I hope it's not you, Reyes, Jan said. The whole situation, it felt like déjà vu to Reyes before. Having been placed on trial, the truth of a certain situation was trying to come to light, and in the process, a world of lies had been unraveled, and all of the blame had been pinned on Reyes. How ironic. Maybe this is what I deserve. But I wonder, why did the elder leave the room? Wouldn't he want to hear what happened from me himself? Not only that, but there wasn't a single guard in the room. Instead, Charlotte just led Reyes to the center before taking a couple of steps away. Aren't you afraid? Reyes asked. Afraid? Charlotte chuckled. Why would I be afraid of a nobody like you? I'm a Pagna warrior, and only you two are left in this room, with such a dangerous criminal. I'm surprised they would allow such things to happen, Reyes continued to say. He was trying to evaluate the situation. If he took these two out, he could quickly use one of the crystals to teleport and open a portal to the other dimension. They left at our request, Hemi answered. What we do isn't allowed to be seen by anyone, but don't worry, you won't remember what happened to you, whether you're guilty or not. Honestly, I don't like doing things this way, but I guess things are just so much easier when you have a helping hand. Hemi nodded towards Charlotte, who raised both of her hands up, pointing them straight at Reyes, and her eyes started to glow slightly white, while her hair slipped out from her hat and started to float about in the air. There's no doubt about it, they're using magic. And in this world, a 9-star mage was the pinnacle of being a mage. They had the power to change and shape nations, and in a way, it sounded a lot like the deity Pagna warriors. With Reyes having been one himself, he knew immediately what this was. She's using magic. There's no doubt about this, Reyes thought. But I thought magic didn't exist in this world. I'm certain it doesn't. Yet she is using it right here and now. Wait, let's try to think about this. Before they had sent the rest of the clan members out, Was it because they didn't want them to see what was going to happen? So that means there's a chance that, just like me, these guys are keeping a secret. I should have known if there was a way for me to come to this world, then it meant there's a good chance for others to do so as well. Now, knowing what the situation was, Reyes was trying to figure out how to use this information to get out of the pickle he was now in. When mages were fighting against others, it was knowledge and experience that allowed one to win the fight. The girl, she's using light magic and using a skill that allows her to find out the truth, Reyes realized. That means she has to be planning to look into my memories. If she saw what happened, then everything would be clear, but what Reyes was unsure about was just how much of his memories she would see. Would she see the memories of the body that he was in at the moment? If that was the case, he didn't mind so much, but if she was able to see memories beyond that, the memories of the life Reyes lived while he was the Dark Magus, there was no chance that she would let him live. I can still use magic myself, but if she's a light magic user, it will be very hard to best her with my dark magic. It was bad for a mage to just learn one element, because one attribute could best another. Dark magic was strong against lightning, while lightning was strong against light, while light was strong against dark. There's also that other man to consider as well. If he's in the room, he can most likely use magic as well. I'm not confident I could beat these two, especially with all the other Pagna warriors as well. There's only one way I can get out of this. Taking in a big, slow breath, Reyes had to be ready. He had to be ready for the next outcome because he wasn't sure that this would work. Wait, Reyes shouted. Are you from Altrian? Immediately, the glow around Charlotte's eyes started to fade. She had yet to use her spell, but her hands were already going down to her side. With her mouth wide open, she could only say a few words. No way. Ha ha, this is splendid, Himi said, with a voice and a face full of joy. It looks like we've managed to solve one of our problems, and they have come right to us. Wait, that means you guys are really from Altrian as well. So that really is magic that she was using. Reyes asked. All the words that Reyes was saying were putting two big smiles on his interrogators' faces, and it looked like he had managed to get out of a tense situation, at least for now. This isn't the best situation for us to meet, but it looks like we have no choice. The truth is we have been looking for you, Himi explained, and he gestured with his hand for them to come forward. He raised his eyebrows towards the door, making Reyes even more sure that this was a secret that was not meant to be heard by the ears of others. Stepping a few steps closer, now each of them were only a couple of meters away from each other. Reyes still didn't want to get too close, because he had cuffs on and was at a disadvantage. Just because someone was from the same world as him, it didn't make them friends automatically. Yet, he couldn't help but feel a strange stare from Charlotte's eyes. What do you mean you were looking for me? How did you know I was here? Reyes asked. The book he had used, as far as he knew, was the only one in existence. No mages had discovered a sign of human life, but maybe that was because they had no way to return. First, before I answer your question, I want to make something clear, Himi stated. Everything we are to tell you is to be kept a secret. This is for you and the sake of Pagna itself. Trust me, if word ever gets out about us, then not only will our organization be after you, but probably the whole of Pagna. Reyes never had any intention of telling anyone about his magic. After all, it was his advantage over the other warriors that existed in this world, or at least that's what he thought anyway. First, I'll answer your question. What you just saw Charlotte use was indeed magic, and it is something that is not used in this world. It comes from the world of Altrian. Are you a mage as well? Charlotte asked with big, wide eyes. You have to be, right? You're not just from Altrian. You have to be a mage to realize that I was using magic. It was clear that Charlotte was overly excited to be meeting someone like her. But why was her reaction so different compared to Himi's? Maybe it just wasn't an everyday occurrence that they would meet someone from the same world. As for me, I'm not a mage. I'm a detective, Himi said, as he reached into his brown overcoat and pulled out a wallet that folded out, showing a badge with an ID number. It was something that Reyes had never seen before. The badge or wallet didn't help Reyes at all either, as they were things he had never seen before. I can see the confusion on your face. That's right, you two may be from Altrian, but I'm from a different world altogether. Himi couldn't have made it any clearer. He was from a different world, not the world of Pagna, not the world of Alterian, but another one altogether where in his life he was a detective. Of course, if I was from Alterian, and this is the world of Pagna, then there will always be the chance for people to be from different places. That should have never escaped the realm of possibilities. Just because such cases never happen on Alterian didn't mean that they wouldn't happen here. Hemi was looking closely at Ray's facial reactions. He noticed that rather than speak straight away, when something would usually shock others, Ray's would stay silent and be deep in thought. These were the observations that he would have done countless times before. He was a creature of many habits. How did you guys arrive in this world? And what are you doing here? Ray's asked. There was a chance that maybe Charlotte had discovered something similar to Ray's, but then what about Hemi? From his statements, his world wasn't a world of magic. We call ourselves Otherworlders, and there is more than just me and Charlotte, Hemi explained. There is a whole organization of us, which is called Alter. You should do well to remember that name. Hemi pointed to the top of his head. The group is filled with those that aren't originally from Pagna. Some worlds full of technology of great advancements, some from a world of darkness, and others from a world of magic. We may be from different places, but we all arrived in the same way. Pulled into a strange portal that brought us here just like you. Right now, Ray's was doing everything he could not to raise his eyebrow or pull a confused face. It was especially hard because the way Hemi was talking was as if he was all-knowing and confident, but that wasn't how Ray's had arrived here. They were pulled, so right now, they're in the same bodies as they were before. But in my case, it was a transmigration. There are two main goals of the Alter organization. Hemi displayed using two of his fingers, and with his other hand, he had them shaped like a V placed close to his lips. He took a deep breath in, and then blew a large one out while curling his lips into the shape of an O. It was one of the strangest things Ray's had ever seen. Little did he know this was one of Hemi's habits he was unable to just forget. The first is to gather the Otherworlders. As they are brought into this world, they will be full of shock and also know things that those of Pagna do not. Depending on who they are, they could bring great problems for this world. But I'll be honest, most of the time that doesn't happen. Although those from Pagna speak the same language, the writing they use, the numbers among other things are greatly different, and so is the culture. Before we from Alter can even reach them, they usually end up being killed or executed by a Pagna warrior or clan. The amount of times I have heard the words, "You are courting death," are too many to count. Having transmigrated into a body that was from Pagna, Ray's didn't have this problem. Yet still, he had come close to meeting his end in the current situation he was in. The people that we look out for most, though, are those from Alterian, Hemi continued. This is because they have the greatest effect on this world. I'm sure you might have already heard about the portals that open up to other dimensions and the portal breaks. Ray's nodded. On Alterian, portals could be opened, but they closed up as well, unlike that on Pagna, and a portal break was unheard of. The portals that were here were clearly different. The portals seemed to strongly react to mana and magic, Charlotte explained. Small uses of magic are fine here and there, but if a large amount is used up at once, a portal will open nearby. It's not always because of us that portals open up, but we have to be careful since it can greatly affect those that are here. Is it only Pagna? Ray's asked, what if magic is used in the portals in the other dimensions? That seems to have no effect, Charlotte replied. It's only in Pagna. It's one of the main reasons we try to track down any Otherworlder and inform them of what is happening. Otherwise, we could be the cause of the collapse of a whole civilization before we know it. These people, Rays, didn't quite understand their actions. Why were they going so far out of their way to help the people of Pagna and help the Otherworlders? Was there any benefit to them? Or were they just trying to be good people? With the people Rays knew, perhaps the gathering of Otherworlders, there was another goal behind it. Didn't you say before that you knew I was here? There's been no portal break here. So what made you think that? Rays asked. Before answering, Hemi did the same action as he did before with his hand, making the shape of the V and blowing out. We had suspicions that there might be one, but in truth, the reason why we are here is related to another matter. It is due to the second goal of the altar, Himi explained, and then motioned as if throwing something on the floor and twisting it with his foot. He started to walk over to Ray's, and his overbearing size became quite apparent. He stayed 1 meter away while looking Ray's right in the eye. Before I tell you the second goal of us altar, I need you to answer me honestly. Are you the one behind the murders going on in this town? And are you the one that did harm to that disciple? Himi asked. So far, Ray's and the mysterious two had a similar connection. They had a reason to talk to him. But did they have a reason to keep him alive? Did they need to stick their neck out to save him? Perhaps that was the reason why they were even asking such a question, and depending on how he answered, it would depend on how they would deal with him as well. In these types of situations, usually the best types of lies are ones sprinkled with a bit of truth, Ray's thought. For now, it's best that they don't know that I transmigrated here rather than being brought over like them. I can't just trust people. The two matters are unrelated, Ray's explained. Just like you, I was brought here into this world, but it was quite recent, and when I came here, I found myself in a household full of the dead. I had no choice but to pretend that I was a part of their family. Himi stood close, observing everything, the movement of Ray's hands, the way he stood, and the tone of his voice when he spoke. I later learned that there have been several family deaths in this town, and since I was the only survivor, they have been suspecting me. As for what happened to the disciple, that was a fault of his own. I recently obtained an earring. It turns out that it was a sealed item. The disciple had stolen it from me. My guess is that he must have failed in breaking the seal, and now it's cursed him. The change across Himi's face changed drastically as his eyes opened wide, and he turned to Charlotte. I think he's telling the truth, Charlotte said. The item he's talking about, I could tell it was special as well, but I didn't have time to check it out properly to think it was a sealed item. Himi didn't say whether he believed Ray's or not. Instead, he was stroking the stubble on his beard several times. I don't believe you completely, Himi said, but it is my job to be suspicious of people. Ray's fingers were twitching. Was this a situation that he would need to fight out of? But then why would the detective tell him he didn't believe him? However, I don't think you are the cause of the deaths that have been taking place, and Charlotte is vouching for you. So whatever you are lying about, it's not one of those things, Himi explained. This detective is a lot better than he looks. Ray's thought. The reason we are here is because of the constant deaths that have been taking place in this town, which is related to the second goal of the altar. Our group is far and wide. We have people in every part of the faction across the continent in a number of different positions, and this is all for the safety of Pagna. Our group obtains and locks away items that are powerful enough to change the world. Just like how we otherworlders come into this world from time to time, it seems that strange items that are capable of doing things that are unimaginable come into this world as well. Our organization considers us protectors of these items. For if even a single person was to get their hands on them, it would be able to change the world. They are just as highly regarded as the deities in this world. However, a lot of these items seem to also come from the other dimensions that open up in this world. We believe that the dimensions are linked to human civilizations that no longer exist, that lost their battles to the beasts, but in their worlds, there are still things that carry great power. In the past, one from the demon faction was able to obtain one of these items, and they had literally turned into a demon on Pagna itself. It had taken the two other factions to team up together to get rid of it. Do you know the item grading system of mages? Charlotte asked. Yes, common, uncommon, rare, elite, unique, mythical, legendary, god-tier items, Ray's replied. Correct. These items that we gather are considered mythical and above. This gave Ray's a bigger idea of the full picture, and he wondered just how many of these items they might have had or were protecting. Is it possible they could have something that even I could use? With these, I could even topple the Grand Magus Returns. Alterians have to be carefully monitored because of our ability to create items as well, Charlotte explained. The reason why we were here is because due to the strange way the deaths are occurring, we believe it might be the cause of another item. We didn't quite expect to run into an otherworlder, but thought there was a chance. Now, with all this information, Himi said with a smile, I have to ask you, will you formally become part of the altar? Charlotte had placed both of her hands together as if she was almost begging. If you join, we can learn a lot about each other, and you're less likely to die. Charlotte said. And on top of that, the leader of Alter is an Alterian as well. You won't believe it, but back on Alterian, he was a 6-star mage. Can you believe it? We are practically working with a superstar and one of the strongest mages in existence. We can really count on him. Oh, I forgot to ask, what is your star rank? 6 stars were certainly something to be amazed at. There were around only 100 of them back on Alterian. With his skills and power, he would certainly have been able to set up an organization like so. So then, if Ray's got his power back, just what would he be capable of? I'm only a 2-star mage, Ray's answered. Still, that's amazing for your age. What are you, 16? And not only that, you're a Pagna warrior. You said you've only been here a short time, and that's impressive considering some of the others never even become a warrior. Trust me, this will be good for the both of us. Charlotte continued to blabber on. So, what's your answer? Himi asked again.